Hello everybody, I'm Laura from Cherubs Chalks Interiors. I'm here today to show you my latest furniture tutorial. And the focus today is this gorgeous linen cupboard which we've given a pink floral makeover. Now this piece is pretty old and it was looking really dull with that dark varnish, and it's clearly been subject to lots of wear and tear over the years. You can see that it really hasn't been given much TLC for a while, so that is our job. I'm going to give this piece a whole new life and a whole new look. Follow along to see how we revive this piece. Now with any upcycle project, the first job is always to give it a real good clean. I mix up some white lightning granules with some water in my spray bottle and I give it a real good scrub. I then rinse off with plain water to make sure that you get rid of all of that degreasing residue. For this piece, I'm then going to fill in all of those handle holes, as I'm planning to use some different handles that require different holes on this one. I'm then going to let that filler dry and I'm going to sand them smooth. I'm also going to scuff sand the rest of this piece so that we give the paint a good key to adhere to. I've got a 120 grit sandpaper on my electric sander and I'm just going to give the whole piece a light scuff. Now I'm just going to give it a super quick clean again, just to get rid of any sanding dust and any remaining dirt. Now it's time to prime. I'm planning to go with a light pink for this cupboard, so I want to make sure that there's going to be no bleed through, and Bond Emboss is the perfect primer to aid with adhesion issues, and also it's got stain blocking properties which will ensure that the colour remains the same and we don't get any bleed through or stains appearing through. I'm also going to work this into the details on those lovely Art Deco feet. I tend to apply 2 coats of Bond Emboss for the best results, but if you have a really heavy bleeder then you can always add 3. I mentioned that we were going for pink, and this is my absolute favourite pink in the chalk mineral paint line. It's called Tea Rose and it's a gorgeous dusky pale shade. Again, I'm going to apply 2 coats of this over the entire piece, making sure to cover up all of that grey primer. The chalk mineral paint has amazing self-levelling properties, so you can achieve a really smooth result if you want to with this paint. It's also great to use a synthetic bristle brush. This really helps to give that smooth finish. I just love looking at these decorative feet, so I'll show you how I work that paint into those too. Once I've got the 2 coats on, I'm going to leave the paint to dry overnight. And then it's time to add those floral details. I've opted for the Savvy's Bouquet transfer, which is one of my favourite transfers with all of those lovely botanicals and the butterfly details too. First up, you need to peel off that white backing sheet and then place the transfer into position. I'm now lining it up with the other part of the transfer that I've already applied to the other cupboard door. Once I know that I have it perfectly aligned, I'm going to start burnishing this on. So to start with, you just want to press down on the design slightly to help it stick and stay in place whilst you work. You can then grab your wooden burnishing tool which comes with your transfer and you can just start burnishing on the transfer design. The point of burnishing is to help the transfer release from the transfer sheet. This is then going to stick onto your piece of furniture when you pull that clear sheet away. This does take time, but it's important to have patience and make sure that the full design has adhered before you remove that sheet. Now I'm going to show you how I continue applying this design, specifically over the drawers. This is where the transfer is going to need to be cut. So I'm going to do the same again, lining it up with the design on the door above. And then I'm going to burnish it on slightly before getting a sharp Stanley knife and carefully slicing through the transfer paper along the edge of the drawer. This of course allows you to open the drawer so you can finish off burnishing on that transfer. You then want to continue this process, cutting the transfer and burnishing it on until it has all adhered and the design is complete. Once you've finished applying the transfer, it's time to seal it in for protection. I'm going to use some clear coat in satin for a subtle sheen, and I'm just going to apply this all over the surface using a synthetic bristle brush. I'll work in long smooth strokes to get the best streak-free finish. And I always find it best to apply 2 coats of this. Now, because I never like things to look too clean and like they've just been painted, I always love to add a bit of grunge. So this time I'm using Best Dang Wax in brown. and I'll apply this using a natural bristle brush. The La Petite brush by Dixie Belle is my favourite. It's the perfect brush for working into all of those details. I'm just going to apply this wax mainly around the edges and in those Art Deco feet. And I'll apply this quite liberally, not really being too fussy about this look as it's going on, as I'll then use a lint-free cloth to really work that in and make it have a blended effect. This is going to smooth out the edges and buff off the excess at the same time. So I just wanted to give you a quick reminder of how this piece looked to start with. And here is how it looks now. Don't you think it looks so fancy compared to the before? I think that the pink background works so well with the subtle tones of the transfer. And you can see that I added some really pretty vintage handles, which I think finish this off perfectly. I also love how the brown wax adds depth and dimension around the edges. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like to see more of our projects, then you can go and find us on all of the social media platforms at Cherubs Chalks Interiors. For more videos like this one, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment and turn on your post notifications to get notified when we next post. Thank you for watching and see you next time.